Good morning everyone! Andito na naman po tayo sa ating pangatlong lesson. Of course, again, this is your teacher Mona Lisa Paredes, your TLE teacher for Beauty Care Grade 7. Okay, for our lesson for today, I'm going to discuss the evaluation and controlling hazards and risk. Ano ba yung tinatawag na hazards and risk? Okay, for the hazard and risk identification, in this lesson, you're going to learn how to identify and control hazards and risks, of course, in a workplace. A healthy and safety at work presentation. Please stay with me at marami po kayong matututunan in this lesson. So, ano ba yung tinatawag na risk assessment? No? How do we assess the risk? But first, we're going to evaluate the definition of hazards and risks. For evaluating and controlling hazards and risks, it is a process of determining the level of risk created by the hazard and the likelihood of injury or illness occurring. The priority of control increases as the established level of risk increases. Person identifying the risk of harm or injury from a hazard in a salon should consider these questions. Number 1, how likely that is a hazard will cause harm? Number 2, how serious that harm is likely to be? And lastly, how open and how many workers are exposed? You must have a record of every risk assessment. If this injury or harm happen again, it is possible that you will go back to the original records to see if the original assessment overlooked a possible hazard. The assessment stage is essential because it will determine the types of control methods required. As a reminder, a risk in the chance, whether if it's high or if it's low, that somebody may be harmed by a hazard. For the control hazards and risks again, where the assessment reveal a problem, preventive measure must be designed and implemented. Control measure should now be selected according to the list of control priorities. First, try to eliminate the hazard. If this is not possible, prevent or minimize exposure to the risk by one or a combination of substituting a less hazardous material, process, or equipment, redesigning equipment of work processes, isolating the hazard. When exposure to the risk is not or cannot be minimized by other means, such as introduce administrative controls like safe work methods and operating procedures. Written work procedures control the way the work is done. You should use appropriate personal protective equipment. For personal protective equipment, or what we call PPE, or PPE at work, especially in this time of pandemic, it is very important for us, for all of us to wear the personal protective equipment to avoid the spread of virus. For personal protective equipment is a clothing equipment designed to be worn by a nail technician or salon workers to protect them from risk or injury or illness. It should only be considered as a control measure when exposure to a risk cannot be minimized in another way, or when used in conjunction with other control measures as a final barrier between the nail salon worker from the chemical hazard and other cause of hazard. This clothing equipment does not control hazard at the source equipment, which will be protect you from risk to health and safety. PPE is composed of the following. Number 1, impermeable gloves. Number 2, eyewear. Number 3, splash-proof apron. Number 4, protective mask. So those are the PPE composition. Again, impermeable gloves, eyewear, splash-proof apron, and protective mask. So always remember that. Advantages of wearing PPE at work. So what are the advantages of wearing PPE class? Number 1, to prevent damage to workers' nails and skin. Next is to prevent skin from absorbing potentially harmful ingredients which may cause skin allergies, irritation, or other related problems. So as not to generate a lot of dust, it may be necessary to wear a dust mask to minimize breathing in particles while filing or buffing the nails. To protect the wearer's face and prevent the breathing of air contaminated with chemical and or biological agents. What are the common workplace hazard and their control measures? So the following are the workplace hazard and their control measures. Number 1 is electrical hazard. Okay. So for the electrical hazard is electrical burns or electrical shocks. An electrical fault could result in loss of business, electric fire, and death or injury. Pag di tayo nag-ingat sa paggamit o sa tamang paggamit ng mga kasangkapan na ginagamitan ng electricity, maaari ito mag-end saan? Total damage, masunog yung ating business, yung pinagkukunan natin ng hanap buhay, no? Resulting, hindi tayo kikita, malaking kawalan, mawawala yung ating mga customer, or worse come to worse, baka may ma-injured resulting to fatal death. So, dapat maging maingat tayo sa paggamit ng mga ito. Many of the electrical appliances used in the beauty salons can create serious health and safety risks in the nail and beauty industry, particularly in wet conditions, no? So, alam naman natin, pag mga kasangkapan na electric generated, ay bawal na bawal ito ma-expose saan? Sa pagbasa o yung ma-expose siya sa tubig, no? So, yun yung iiwasan natin. Damage to equipment increases the risk, of course. Electrical shock can result in electrocution, burns, and injuries from falls. How to control measures, no? You should always check any equipment before use. So, tama-tama, bago mo gamitin talaga ang isang kasangkapan, lalo na yung mga matagal nang itinatago, i-check muna natin maigi. Kasi baka mamaya hindi natin maiwasan sa pagtago natin, ay nangat-ngat pala to ng mabait, di syempre yung wire naka-open. So, suddenly sinaksak natin, di natin alam, nakuryente na pala tayo. So, it is very important to check, no? Ask qualified electrician to check all pieces of electrical equipment in the workplace annually or as often as possible. So, dapat pinapacheck talaga natin ito regularly sa ating trusted technician. Yung iba nagpapacheck yearly, yung iba kung kinakailangan, hindi na pinapalagpas ng 1 taon, no? Habit na nila magpacheck as often as possible. Broken or damaged electrical equipment should not be used. The tag must warn people not to use the equipment. So, pag alam natin sira na o damage na itong electrical equipment na to, pwede nating lagyan ng tag. O hindi naman natin talaga na maipapagawa o wala ng dahilan pa para ipagawa, ay hindi na magagawa, ay itapon na lang natin ito. Pero, dapat lagyan natin ng tag na ito ay broken or damage. Para naman yung makakuha o makadampot nito, hindi na niya ito gamitin pa. Okay? When adjusting or cleaning equipment, switch off the power and pull out the plug and not by the cord. O, ayan. Cleaning 101 tayo ng mga electric equipment. So napakabawal, bawal na bawal talaga. Nalinisin ng mga ito habang ito ay naka-on, nakasaksak sa kuryente. So dapat i-off natin, alisin natin, i-unplug natin ito bago natin totally linisin. At ang mga electrical equipment at maaari din natin ito nililinis gamit ang tubig. Dapat tuyong basahan lang na malinis. Kasi nga, pagkabasa, di ba, mga bata, ingat tayo. Kasi doon na tayo makukuryente, no? Kaibigan ng kaibigan ni electricity ang tubig, no? Kasi doon siya dumadaloy. Kaya yun ang iiwasan natin. Okay? Do not touch equipment with wet hands or don't choose a wet cloth to clean socket. So, nasabi ko na nga, lalo yung mga kamay natin, bago tayo humipo ng electric equipment o electrical equipment, dapat kung basa ang ating mga kamay, tuyuin muna natin. Okay? Wala namang masama kung tutuyuin ng kamay. No? Huwag tayo magmadali pagdating sa kuryente kasi napakadali talagang makakuryente pagkabasa ang ating mga kamay. Make sure flexible cord are fully unwound and keep clear of work traffic. No? Do not run too many pieces of equipment from one socket. Yung octopus na socket na tinatawag, no? Avoid using that. As much as possible, 2 to 3 ay sapat na sa isang socket. More than that, dyan na nagsisimula yung pagputok, pagsabog. So, mas madaling masisira yung ating mga electrical o electric equipment, no? Okay? Okay, so we're done with the electrical hazard. So, we're now, I'm going to discuss the chemical hazard naman. Ano ba itong mga chemical hazards na to? Chemical hazards are substances used and or produced at work that have the potential to harm in health and safety of people at work. Okay, in the beauty industry, it is exposed to repeated exposure to numerous hazardous substances including nail and skincare products, hair dyes, bleaches, firming solutions, hair styling agents, straightener, rebonding solution, peroxide, disinfectants, and cleaning products. So, tama-tama, no? Related sa ating topic. Marami talaga tayong ginagamit na chemical, no? So, dapat ay mapag-aralan natin kung ano ang tamang paggamit ng mga ito. Kasi may tamang dosage ito, hindi basta natin isinasali, no? Lalo kung i-apply natin ito sa ating buhok, sa ating balat. So, sino ba naman ang may gustong magkaroon ng chemical hazards, di ba? So, it is very important for us to train. Train muna natin yung mga tao natin, lalong-lalo na pangalan ng inyong salon, ang dala-dala. So, pag nasira sila sa tao, di naman natin pwedeng sabihin na kasi hindi naman na-train yan, kasi ganun yan, hindi sanay, hindi natin pwedeng ikatwiran yan. Kaya nga may mga training tayo dapat gawin sa kanila, no? Ito mga chemical hazards na to, they can harm people's health if they get into the body, no? Napakalaking hazard ang magagawa nito talaga sa ating labas at loob ng katawan. For example, if they are breathed in or absorbed through the skin or eyes, ingested accidentally, no? So, dapat talaga ilagay natin dito sa tamang lugar kung saan hindi ito magagalaw ng kung sino-sino lang. No? Authorized person, lalo kung madami kang stock nito. The effects of hazardous substances may show immediately. No? Napakabilis. Mabilis malapnos ang balat nyo, mabilis malagas ang buhok nyo. So, ganun kabilis, no? Or it may take years for illness or disease to develop. Merong mga chemicals na hindi mo agad makikita yung epekto habang tumatagal. Minsan nga inaabot 1 taon saka mo palang makikita yung epekto nito, no? So, health effects of some hazardous substances include skin irritation, coughs, asthma, sensitization, and poisoning, or worse come to worse, it may leads to cancer. So, wag na nating hintayin mapunta pa doon, no? For the measures of concentration of toxic substances o yung tinatawag na chemical substances, threshold limit value o yung tinatawag na TLB. Ano ba na tinatawag na TLB? TLB is a measure of concentration of toxic substances. It is the average concentration of an airborne substance to which most workers could be safely exposed over an 8-hour working day or 40-hour working week throughout a working lifetime. Ano naman yung tinatawag na MCL o yung Maximal Allowable Concentration? MCL is a peak or maximum concentration of an airborne to which most worker could be safely exposed. For the control measures, you need using alternative substances or processes which are less hazardous. Good ventilation can get rid of the fumes and chemical smell that builds up in a salon. Providing separate eating and drinking amenities for employees. Ensuring appropriate safety signs, training instructions, and provision of material. Safety data sheets or MSDS and labels, and using appropriate PPE. Okay? How to identify and control hazards and risks in a workplace. In this lesson, you're going to identify how to identify and control hazards and risks in a workplace. So, meron akong video na isi-send sa inyo. I think isa hanggang dalawa. So, bibigyan ko kayo ng time para panoodin ito after ng ating lesson, no? For the risk assessment, meron akong hinanda na activity for you. Actually, you're going to answer this in a separate sheet of paper, and I'm going to send, of course, your module in our group chat, and on the last page of your module, you can find the answer sheet for you to answer, no? You can take picture and send it back to me. Don't forget to notify me, no? You should put your full name there and of course your section. Now, okay lang sa akin kung hindi nyo pa masoli yung module dahil umiiwas nga tayo sa paghawa natin, no? Baka mahawa kasi tayo kasi ang virus na ililipat yan sa pamagitan ng paghawak, no? So kung nahawakan mo yung papel na yon, meron kang virus, madaling mahahawa si teacher mo na. So lahat din ng pagsasalina ng papel na yon. So iwas muna tayo. Meron naman time para magsoli ng module. Okay? So, going back to your activity, I'm going to give you the directions. Now, you're going to choose the word from the box given below to complete the sentences. No? 1 to 10 items for 15 minutes. So, bibilang ako after 15 minutes. Dapat na sagutan nyo na yan, send nyo na to sa akin. Okay? So again, this is your teacher, Monalisa Paredes, your beauty care teacher for today. Good luck for the answering of your module. Bye-bye.